There is a realm beyond what the eyes can see, beyond the noise of the world and the gravity of your circumstances. It is not made of matter, nor bound by time. It is the unseen architecture of reality itself, the higher dimension of mind. And once you learn to access it, you begin to shape the very trajectory of your future. Because the future is not something that happens to you, it is something sculpted through consciousness, through the precision of your inner vision. Most people live as prisoners of the present moment, not in the sense of mindfulness, but in the sense of being trapped in reaction slaves to external events, to emotion, to fear, to the invisible pull of the crowd. They live as echoes, not creators. They mirror what happens rather than generating what will happen. But those who awaken to the higher dimension, those who learn to move from it, speak from it, create from it, become architects of fate. They bend probability around the axis of their inner conviction. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Most people do not realize how literal this is. Your unconscious is the bridge between this world and the next, not the next life, but the higher plane of creation that your thoughts and emotions are constantly feeding. Every fear you indulge, every image you obsess over, every resentment you nurse, becomes a seed planted in that invisible soil. And one day, it grows into an event, a situation, a person, a test, something that mirrors the vibration of your inner state. You are both the sculptor and the sculpture, both the creator and the creation. To access the higher dimension, you must first silence the lower one. You must starve the noise of validation, the endless dialogue of opinion, the restless need to be seen. When the ego quiets, another voice emerges, not of thought, but of knowing. A clarity that doesn't come from logic, but from alignment. This is the state where reality begins to obey you. Because you are no longer chasing form, you are operating from essence. The ancients understood this long before psychology gave it a name. The Hermetic principle of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without, was not a metaphor, but a literal description of consciousness mechanics. Your inner dimension projects itself outward, and the outer world bends to its image. When you understand this, you stop arguing with reality, you stop fighting circumstances, you start sculpting them. You stop trying to control people. You begin to master frequency, because everything that exists is vibration, and everything that vibrates can be tuned. Imagine your mind as a tuning fork. Every emotion, every thought, every intention emits a resonance that either attracts harmony or dissonance. Fear lowers your vibration, compressing your field until life itself becomes heavy, slow, resistant. Love, on the other hand, expands it. Discipline sharpens it. Vision directs it. And gratitude stabilizes it. The higher dimension is not accessed through mystical portals, but through the consistent elevation of state, through the deliberate creation of harmony between your inner and outer worlds. But here is the paradox. The higher you rise, the less you must try. The more aligned you become, the more the universe begins to organize around you. Opportunities appear not because you forced them, but because you resonated with them. This is why the ancient mystics spoke of manifestation not as wishful thinking, but as attunement. When you enter the higher dimension, your desires cease to be separate from you. They become extensions of your being. And what belongs to you by frequency cannot be taken from you by force. The modern world has forgotten this truth. We are taught to chase results, to manipulate systems, to compete, to grasp. But the higher dimension does not respond to effort. It responds to coherence, to clarity, to certainty. When your mind, emotion, and action move as one, the universe cannot resist, because you have become the reflection of order itself. You have become the archetype of creation. And yet, few people reach this state, not because it is hidden, but because it demands inner death. To access the higher dimension, The lower self must dissolve. The ego must burn. The attachments must be sacrificed. You cannot carry your illusions across that threshold. You cannot take your bitterness, your envy, your self-pity. The higher dimension has no room for the density of victimhood, only for the lightness of truth. The first step is awareness. Observe yourself as though you are two beings, the actor and the witness. The actor reacts, desires, fears, and clings. The witness watches in silence. The more you identify with the witness, the more the noise of the actor loses its grip. And when that distance becomes vast enough, you will begin to feel something strange, a quiet authority over your own reality, not dominance, not control, but authorship. You will begin to sense that events unfold according to the precision of your internal order, that chaos only reflects your own confusion. That peace, when found within, radiates outward like gravity, rearranging the world around you. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, of reconciling the conscious and unconscious, the higher and lower, the light and the shadow. But individuation is not a mental exercise. It is a spiritual reformation. It is the dismantling of the false self so that the true one can emerge. The true self is not your name, not your history, not your trauma, not your achievements. It is the part of you that observes all of that and remains untouched. When you act from that center, your words carry weight. Your presence becomes magnetic. You stop chasing power because you have become power itself. Most people think shaping the future means strategic planning, goal setting, effort, willpower. Those are the tools of the physical realm necessary, yes, but secondary. The true shaping happens in the invisible. It happens when your vibration precedes your movement, when your inner world becomes so coherent, so precise, that it begins to command the outer world with silent authority. The future does not need to be fought for when it is already aligned within you. This is why solitude is sacred. Solitude is the laboratory of higher creation. When you step away from the world, you disconnect from its hypnosis. You stop downloading the collective noise of fear, desire, and scarcity. You begin to hear the whisper of your own design. You begin to see patterns, connections, archetypes. You begin to feel that the world is not random, but deeply responsive, that everything you experience is a mirror, and every mirror is an invitation to evolve. Do not mistake stillness for stagnation. Stillness is gestation. It is the pause between lightning and thunder. The mind that knows how to be still is the mind that learns to receive. And reception is the first act of creation. When you become receptive to the higher dimension, ideas flow through you, not from you. Intuition becomes your compass. Timing becomes precise. You begin to operate according to the rhythm of something vast and intelligent. You begin to realize that miracles are not exceptions. They are the natural consequence of alignment. The key is to remember, your mind is not inside your head. Your brain is a receiver. Your consciousness is non-local. It extends beyond your body, beyond your senses, beyond space and time. Every thought you think ripples through the quantum field, shaping probability, bending reality. You are not just participating in existence, you are sculpting it with every vibration you emit. This is the power of accessing the higher dimension. It is the awakening of the godlike creative force within you, not to dominate others, but to master yourself. And when you master yourself, you cease to be at war with the world. You no longer need to control outcomes because you trust your frequency. You no longer crave validation because you are aligned with truth. You no longer fear loss because nothing real can be lost. You begin to move through life with the calm of someone who knows that the future is already forming beneath their feet, shaped by the precision of their inner state. To live from the higher dimension is to move through the world like a lucid dreamer in a sleeping crowd, to see every challenge as energy, every person as reflection, every moment as creation. It is to become conscious in the game of life, to play with awareness rather than fear. And when you reach that state, destiny becomes collaboration. The universe becomes an accomplice in your evolution. And the future becomes not a mystery but a masterpiece unfolding through you. And yet, few will dare to live this way, not because they cannot, but because they are afraid to surrender control. The human ego clings to suffering like a badge of existence, terrified that peace might mean disappearance. It feeds on friction, on problems to solve, on enemies to blame. The ego would rather be in pain than be irrelevant. But in the higher dimension, the ego has no oxygen. It cannot breathe where there is no drama, no comparison, no noise. To rise beyond it is to die while still alive, to dissolve into something infinitely greater than the self you once defended. In that death, you awaken. You begin to feel the pulse of the cosmos in your veins, not metaphorically, but experientially. You realize that what you once called intuition was not some mystical whisper. It was the direct communication between your consciousness and the field of all possibilities. Every event, every decision, every crossing of paths was never random. It was orchestrated through vibration. You have always been in dialogue with the universe. You were simply too loud to hear the response. This is why silence terrifies most people. Silence reveals the truth of what they are. And truth is not always flattering. It strips away identity, exposes insecurity, and dismantles illusion. But for those who can endure it, silence becomes revelation. In that stillness, you begin to perceive time differently. You no longer rush, because you understand that everything unfolds precisely when it must. You no longer fear the future, because you are already shaping it in the present. Patience becomes power. Detachment becomes clarity, and clarity becomes creation. Once you enter this space, you begin to see how every thought you think has architecture, form, density, and trajectory. Some thoughts are heavy, like lead, pulling your consciousness downward. Others are radiant, like light, lifting you effortlessly. The mind is not a chaotic river. It is a sculptor's tool. Most people let it carve unconsciously, creating shapes of fear, scarcity, and limitation. But when you become conscious of your inner sculptor, you begin to chisel beauty out of chaos. You begin to create with precision, like an artist painting on the canvas of existence. This is what the mystics meant when they said God created man in his image. It was not about appearance. It was about the power to imagine, to conceive reality through inner vision. The imagination is not fantasy. It is the womb of the universe. Every invention, every civilization, every empire began as a spark in the unseen realm of someone's imagination. The higher dimension is not up there or out there. It is within the field of creative potential, waiting for your consciousness to mold it. But here lies the warning. Whatever you dwell on consistently, you breathe life into. The mind is a womb that cannot stay barren. It will give birth to whatever seed you plant, whether it is faith or fear, love or bitterness, creation or destruction. This is why guarding your inner world is the highest discipline. To think carelessly is to live carelessly. To think with intention is to live with mastery. When you truly understand this, you begin to treat your mind as sacred ground. You stop allowing just anyone to enter it with their words, their opinions, their energy. You begin to filter what you consume, not just in media, but in conversation, in emotion, in thought. You become selective, not out of arrogance, but out of protection, because you now understand that your mental diet creates your spiritual chemistry. The quality of what you feed your mind determines the dimension you operate from. This is where self-discipline transcends motivation. Discipline is not suppression. It is devotion to higher order. It is the willingness to align your lower impulses with your higher vision. In the physical world, discipline looks like restraint. But in the higher dimension, Discipline is freedom, because only a focused mind can move energy deliberately. Only a coherent being can create consciously. People think freedom means doing whatever they want, but true freedom means mastery over what wants to control you. It is the ability to choose thoughts deliberately, to redirect emotion consciously, to channel energy purposefully. The undisciplined mind is a servant to chaos. The disciplined mind is a creator of cosmos. Every master, every sage, every visionary who changed the world first conquered the battlefield within. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions begin to align, you emit a frequency that reality cannot resist. You become a magnet for experiences that match your vibration. You stop chasing, and instead you attract. You stop forcing, and instead you allow. Life becomes an elegant dance between intention and surrender. And the irony is that this surrender is not weakness, it is the ultimate strength. It is the recognition that you do not need to push reality, because reality is already moving toward you. But make no mistake, accessing the higher dimension does not mean escaping the human experience. It means elevating it. It means walking through pain without becoming it. It means facing chaos without losing your center. It means understanding that suffering has meaning, that even darkness serves evolution. The universe is not cruel. It is surgical. Every challenge that wounds you is carving away what cannot enter the next dimension of your growth. In the higher dimension, even pain becomes sacred. It becomes the fire that purifies. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin to ask, what is this awakening within me? You start to see that every heartbreak, every loss, every betrayal is a coded message, a lesson written in the language of transformation. And when you learn to read that language, nothing can truly hurt you anymore. Because pain only persists when you resist it. When you stop fighting it, it dissolves. When you let it flow through you, it becomes light. The alchemists knew this truth. Transmutation begins with acceptance. Gold is not made by avoiding fire, but by enduring it with awareness. The same is true for the soul. You become luminous, not by escaping suffering, but by illuminating it from within. And as you rise through this process, your perception of life changes entirely. You begin to see patterns where others see chaos. You recognize that people act according to their level of consciousness, not out of malice. You realize that judgment is blindness, that hatred is just misunderstood pain. Compassion becomes wisdom, not sentiment. Forgiveness becomes freedom, not weakness. You stop trying to change others and instead embody the change itself. When you operate from this state, your very presence alters the energy of a room. You speak less, but your silence says more. You influence without effort. You inspire without intention. Because your vibration has become your message. You are no longer trying to prove who you are demonstrating it through being. And this is where true power lives, in silent, grounded, unwavering presence. The higher dimension is not a place you go, it is a frequency you become. It is the alignment of your mind with truth, your heart with love, and your actions with integrity. It is not reached through struggle, but through surrender to coherence. And when you reach it, you realize something profound. You never had to reach it at all. It was always here, waiting for you to remember. When you begin to remember, you awaken from the illusion that life is happening outside of you. You realize that every moment is a reflection of your inner architecture. Every event, every coincidence, every obstacle is a mirror revealing the geometry of your soul. The world bends not to your wishes, but to your structure. And that structure is made of clarity. Clarity is not just seeing things as they are. It is seeing yourself without distortion. It is standing before the mirror of reality with unflinching honesty, no longer hiding behind excuses or masks. The moment you become clear within, reality stops being your enemy. It stops testing you with confusion because confusion no longer lives in you. The universe mirrors coherence, not chaos. It mirrors belief, not doubt. Most people never find clarity because they are addicted to distraction. They scroll endlessly, consume thoughtlessly, speak compulsively, all to avoid the silence that would expose their lack of direction. But clarity cannot be found in motion. It emerges from stillness. It is born when you stop asking what the world wants from you and start asking what truth demands of you. Truth has no agenda, no ambition, no fear. It simply is. And when you align with it, your path reveals itself like a road unfolding from the fog. Purpose does not come from searching. It comes from remembering. You are not here to imitate, to compete, or to fit into the machinery of the collective dream. You are here to awaken a specific vibration, one that only your soul can emit. That vibration is your purpose. It is not a job, not a title, not a role. It is the way your energy moves through existence. Purpose is frequency. And when you live in tune with it, even the smallest action becomes divine. Think of the greatest minds: Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, Jung himself. Their brilliance did not come from intellect alone, but from alignment. They accessed something beyond themselves, a dimension of insight that flowed through them. They were not inventors in the conventional sense. They were conduits for the infinite. The genius of the higher dimension is not created, it is received. And to receive, you must clear the noise, refine your vessel, purify your intention. This is why vision is sacred. Vision is not fantasy. It is the perception of potential that exists before form. When you hold a vision long enough, with clarity and conviction, it begins to condense, to take on density, to draw people, resources, and opportunities that match its vibration. Vision is the architecture of reality before it is built. The clearer the vision, the stronger the gravitational pull. But vision alone is not enough. Without discipline, vision decays into delusion. Without action, intention rots into regret. The higher dimension demands participation. You are not meant to simply dream it. You are meant to embody it. Every thought must be followed by movement. Every insight anchored through practice. The mind creates, but the body completes. Action is the bridge that brings heaven to earth. Discipline, in its purest form, is not control, it is devotion. Devotion to your future self, to your evolution, to the sacred work of becoming. Discipline is the worship of potential through action. It is showing up for your higher self even when your lower self resists. The disciplined do not wait for motivation. They operate from identity. They act not because they feel like it, but because they are it. And this is where power shifts forever. Once you begin to act in alignment with your higher dimension, your identity transforms. You no longer chase outcomes. Outcomes begin to orbit you. You no longer seek validation. Validation becomes irrelevant. You no longer ask, will it happen? You know that it already has, somewhere in the unseen layers of time. And your only task is to match that frequency through action. When you operate this way, failure loses its sting. Setbacks become recalibrations. Rejection becomes redirection. Because the higher dimension does not see loss, it sees refinement. It is always guiding you toward the version of reality most aligned with your evolution. What you call a detour is often divine correction. What you call delay is often preparation. The universe is not punishing you. It is positioning you. And in that realization, peace begins to bloom where fear once lived. You stop resisting the flow of life and begin to move with it. You learn to dance with uncertainty, to trust the unseen rhythm guiding every twist of your path. You stop asking, why is this happening? And begin to whisper, I understand. Because your soul knows what your mind has not yet learned, that nothing unfolds by accident. This trust is the highest form of intelligence. It is the wisdom that sees beyond appearances, beyond outcomes, beyond logic. It is knowing that reality is not linear but multidimensional, that every timeline already exists, and you are merely tuning to the one that matches your vibration. Faith is not blind belief, it is energetic precision. It is the deliberate calibration of your state to the outcome you desire. Once you live from this space, fear cannot coexist with you, not because you suppress it, but because you outgrow it. Fear thrives on separation, on the illusion that you are alone, disconnected from the field. But when you awaken to the higher dimension, you feel the living web that connects all things. You understand that every person, every opportunity, every challenge is part of your own reflection. Nothing is separate, and therefore nothing is threatening. This is why gratitude becomes the language of the higher mind. Gratitude is not a reaction to good fortune, it is the frequency that generates it. When you are grateful, you are acknowledging the perfection of the moment. You are aligning yourself with abundance, with sufficiency, with flow. Gratitude dissolves resistance. It transforms struggle into appreciation, scarcity into awareness, fear into wonder. The higher you rise in consciousness, the more naturally gratitude becomes your baseline. Adaptability is its companion, the fluidity to move through life without rigidity. The universe rewards those who can bend without breaking. Rigidity is the ego's armor. Adaptability is the soul's strength. The rigid mind tries to control life. The adaptable mind dances with it. When you learn to adapt, you stop fearing change because you realize you are change. You are not the wave trying to fight the ocean. You are the ocean expressing itself as a wave. Resilience, then, is not the ability to endure pain, but to transmute it. It is the alchemical courage to let every blow refine you rather than define you. You stop identifying with wounds and start extracting wisdom. You stop replaying what hurt you and start studying what it taught you. Pain loses its power when it becomes teacher instead of tyrant. And in that transformation, you become untouchable, not because you are numb, but because you are free. Freedom is not the absence of chaos. It is the presence of clarity amid it. It is the stillness in the storm, the calm in the noise. It is knowing that no external force can dictate your inner state unless you allow it. The truly free soul moves through the world, like wind present everywhere, bound nowhere. They are not owned by their emotions, their past, or their image. They are owned only by truth, and truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. Once you've glimpsed the higher dimension, the illusion of ordinary life begins to dissolve. You start to see through appearances, through pretenses, through the performance of the human condition. You see the fear behind arrogance, the longing behind anger, the love hidden within pain. You no longer react, you understand. You no longer judge, you witness. You no longer seek control, you embody harmony. The higher dimension is not about escaping reality. It is about expanding it. It is about seeing the divine blueprint beneath the chaos, the order hidden in disorder. It is about remembering that you are not a fragment of existence. You are the totality experiencing itself through a single point of awareness. You are the observer, the dreamer, the architect, the dream itself. And when you finally awaken to that truth, you stop asking how to shape your future because you realize you already are. Every breath, every thought, every act of awareness sends ripples through eternity. The question is not whether you are shaping reality, but which version you are shaping. Are you creating from fear or from vision, from scarcity or from abundance, from ego or from essence? Your future is not waiting for you, it is responding to you. Every moment you choose clarity over confusion, courage over comfort, creation over complaint. You step deeper into that higher dimension. You become less a participant in life and more its composer. You begin to move through the world with quiet authority, not the authority of control, but of coherence. And when coherence becomes your nature, the universe listens. And when the higher self finally awakens, there is no thunder, no spectacle, no applause. There is only silence, the kind that hums with infinite power. A silence so vast that it swallows every doubt, every fear, every trace of who you once were. You stand at the edge of everything you thought was real and realize that you have crossed no boundary at all. You have simply remembered what you have always been. The mind quiets. The heart steadies. The world does not change, you do. And in that shift, everything responds. The noise of life becomes music. The chaos becomes choreography. You no longer interpret events as personal victories or defeats. You see them as movements of an intelligence so precise that even pain was sacred. Even loss was love disguised as evolution. The higher self does not seek control because it is control. It does not seek peace because it is peace. It does not seek purpose because it is purpose. You have spent years, perhaps lifetimes, searching for meaning in the world, in success, in relationships, in validation. But when you awaken, you realize meaning was never lost. It was hidden behind the veil of your own resistance. The truth was always whispering through intuition, through synchronicities, through the quiet pull of your own becoming. When you live from this awareness, you no longer chase the future, you magnetize it. You no longer beg the universe to move in your favor, you become the universe in motion. Everything you need begins to unfold with mathematical precision, not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. You are no longer a character in the story, you are the author, the narrator, and the ink from which the story is written. This is the moment you understand that your thoughts are spells, your emotions are fuel, your actions are commands. You see that creation is not about hoping, but knowing. It is not about wishing for what might be, but realizing that all possibilities already exist within the field, waiting for your frequency to summon them. The higher dimension is not separate from the physical, it is the architect of it. The unseen shapes the scene. Consciousness molds the concrete. And then you begin to walk differently. The world feels familiar yet entirely new. Every face you meet reflects some fragment of yourself. Every experience becomes a conversation with your own energy. You no longer seek validation because you are validation. You no longer try to prove your worth because existence itself is proof. You breathe, and the universe breathes with you. You move, and reality rearranges around you. You realize that there was never a journey upward, only inward. The climb was an illusion. The mountain was always inside you. Every struggle, every doubt, every fall was the path folding back into your own awakening. You were never lost. You were only remembering. The higher dimension was never distant. It was hidden behind the noise of your own thoughts. Now you understand the great paradox. To shape your future, you must stop chasing it. To access power, you must stop grasping for it. To become divine, you must stop pretending you are separate from it. The future bends to those who no longer chase it, because they have become one with its source. So you stand there calm, awake, alive, and you see life for what it truly is. A mirror, endlessly reflecting your inner state. You see that anger dissolves when you no longer feed it, that fear evaporates when you face it with awareness, that love, pure and unconditional, was never something to earn. It was the energy holding the entire structure of reality together. And in that knowing, you finally understand the secret that sages, mystics, and visionaries tried to translate for centuries. You can mentally shape your future by accessing a higher dimension, but that dimension is not above the clouds or hidden in sacred texts. It is the space within you that remembers you are infinite. When you act from that space, you stop surviving and begin creating. You stop reacting and begin radiating. You stop existing as a product of time and become a sculptor of it. And from that moment on, your life ceases to be a repetition of the past. It becomes a revelation of your true potential. The world bends around your awareness. The future becomes pliable in your hands. And every breath, every choice, every heartbeat becomes an act of creation. because you are no longer waiting for the light. You are the light shaping the shadows into form. That is the power of the higher dimension. Not to escape reality, but to awaken within it, as the dreamer who finally realizes there was a dream all along.